Hi guys, I'm Nick from Electronic Arts. I'm here with three fantastic Galaxy of Heroes players / YouTubers. I've got here to my right, Nukin from Republic. We've got CrazyExcuses, Cubsfan Han on the end over there. Thanks for being here, guys. So I want to talk with you guys today about Squad Arena. This is one of the main draws, I think, for the game. When people talk about like the meta, they're usually referring to Squad Arena. And since this is such a big deal, we want to make sure that people that get involved kind of, they know from the start, getting them on the right path, how we're going to, which characters to use. Level 50, we unlock mods. So let's just dive right into it. Who wants to tackle this subject first?
So first and foremost, when it comes to Squad Arena, I think there is and I believed this lie for a long time. There's a misconception that you have a cap of what you can get to, and that's pretty like maybe in the 200s, 300s, somewhere around there, and then it's just not realistic to get up into the top of your arena shards, and that is simply not true. You can absolutely, any player, whether you're free to play or whether you're pay to play, you can get to the top of your arena shard and even get to the #1 spot. The key in getting there is going to be, especially if you're free to play, is going to be patience. And I do think with free to play players, if you're earlier in the game, more like level 70, between level 70 and 80, then there might be a bit of a paywall there where a lot of those players are going to be farther ahead of you because of the money they've invested. But you'll reach a certain point where ultimately those players that are investing actual money in the game, they can only invest in Arena in 5 characters. And you will be able to catch up and be competitive with those players. So please, please, please do not believe that you can't make it to the top of your shards. I'm a free-to-play player that has made it to the very top of my shard, and I can finish #1 or #2 every day depending on my rotation. So I think that needs to be established first. Now, when you're looking at getting to the top of your arena shard, and you'll hear a shard, for those who don't know, that's kind of what we refer to as the group of people that you are in your arena server with, is what some people will call your shard. They're people who started the game around the same time as you. One of the first steps that I took when I first looked at it is I looked at what characters were being ran in the top. What is viable in the top? And every arena shard is going to be different. But if you look at the top of your arena shard, figure out which characters am I farming already? Which characters do I already have that I'm seeing showing up here? What character maybe do I need to unlock? If I look at this team, okay, that's a team I'm pretty close to. I've got 4 of these characters. Who's the one missing character you don't have? And then farm that team. I think that's a good starting point of figuring out what is viable in the top of your arena shard, and then farm the heck out of that team. And then there's a lot more that goes into it, like mods, which I'm sure we'll probably get into the nitty-gritty of mods here in a minute. But yeah, that's kind of, I think, a basic starting point, is identify what 5 characters would theoretically get you there, and then start farming the heck out of them.
And when you're picking the characters, pick ones that are fun to use, because you have to use them a lot, and you're not going to do your arena, no matter how good the team is. Like, I don't use Barris. As good as she is, she's boring to me.
Thank you. I hate Barris.
She's really good, and I don't care. I'm not going to use her. She just hits like a wet noodle.
She hits like a wet noodle.
She does.
That's exactly what she does.
Poking with her lightsaber. Anyways, so pick characters that are at least fun to use. This is just your arena squad. And you won't just use them in arena. They will be your best team, so you will use them in a lot of different parts of the game. So pick characters that you enjoy using and that have some longevity to them. When you're looking at the top of your arena shard, there are likely going to be lots of different types of teams. And sometimes teams are just a quick meta, like Zeta Maul was really popular for a while, and now he's not as common. He just kind of came and went. So that was one of the Zetas that I skipped, because I'm free to play. I can't keep up with that. So when I was building my arena team, I was picking tunes that are very versatile, that can go in a lot of different teams, that I can use in different aspects of the game, that don't all depend on each other. They're not dependent on a faction, so that I had more flexibility. And I've been able to stick with my same team for months, and they just kind of outlast every meta. So when you're building a team and looking at the top teams, not only picking the teams that are at the top, but when you're looking through those, which ones, if you're free to play, will last you a long time and get you lots of uses throughout lots of different.
And that can be a guessing game. So be patient. You don't want to fall into this rut where you're constantly chasing the meta, is what they call it, where
like a donkey with a carrot.
Yeah, you're trying to get there and then you finally get there and then it shifts. So you do want to be cognizant of what has longevity to it, what is more niche, what's going to last for small amounts of time. And that, I mean, honestly, that can be part of the caveat of this. It makes it very challenging. I think it's hard sometimes to pull that off and to get there. By the time you get there, the meta might have shifted, and that's kind of part of the challenge of Arena. But once you're there, it becomes easier to manage.
And it's not like everything's lost. Zeta Mall is still very useful in other parts of the game, so it's not like you completely lose out.
Yeah, and to add, so there are going to be particular characters that are more universal than others. For example, there's particular Empire characters like the Magma Trooper, who is an Imperial Trooper unit. He's an attacker, but you can only really use him on a specific Empire Imperial Trooper squad, and sometimes he doesn't even make the cut. But then you have other characters, for example, like Emperor Palpatine or Grand Admiral Thrawn, for example. You may not unlock them, and actually that leads me to a sort of another point. You want to build your team over time and have a long-term plan. So, for example, maybe your long-term goal is to have a Grand Admiral Thrawn lead. Well, you're not going to get there immediately, especially if you're around level 70 or 80. You will one day, but you want to build a team that kind of evolves and develops, and you can, as you acquire characters, gear them, collect them up, get an extra star level, and then once they're ready, you can throw them in your arena team and kind of swap them out as you go. So sometimes what we do is we make a long-term plan. So like with CrazyExcuses, I helped her out a little bit, and we helped her arena team. We went from sort of this Rex, Wiggs, Sunfac team, and then but we knew that wasn't the meta team. That wasn't the best team, but it was the best sort of combination of characters, and we had a long-term goal. Like, okay, once I've unlocked this character and maybe they're gear 10, I can take out maybe Sunfac and another character and put in Baze and Chirrut, which are better. Another example, a lot of newer players will probably have Wedge and Biggs, who are two great rebels. They have a lot of good synergy, but then Baze and Chirrut are just a little bit better and provide a little bit more to your team. So I guess we can run with the rebel example, for example. Maybe you start off with a Wedge lead with Biggs, and you throw in a bunch of other rebels, and then that sort of evolves into a Jin lead, who's a Rogue One character, and you have Chirrut and Baze, and you keep in that Wedge and Biggs, and then over time you actually take out Wedge and Biggs as you've acquired Cassian and K2SO, and that rebel team has evolved. And you can do that with Empire, you can do that with a bunch of different factions. So you're looking for either characters in a faction that work well and have multiple purposes. You're looking for also unique characters that can fit multiple teams. Another example like that is Boba Fett. He's not the best, but he's above average in a lot of aspects, and you can run him as a leader. You can run him sometimes under like maybe a Darth Vader leadership, because he has a bunch of synergy with some of the Empire characters, even though he's not specifically Empire. So when you're looking at that, you can build a game plan of how you can start to move up in an arena. It's not a one-day, overnight thing, but if you think about it and you plan ahead, you can start to move, maybe 50 to 100 spots. And as you move up, it becomes easier to follow that game plan because you're acquiring more currency for the store, you're getting more crystals, and it accelerates from there.
The other thing is a tune, especially one that's really strong, doesn't have to be 7-star to be used in an arena team. So don't think that you have to have 7-star or else you can't use them. Half of my arena team used to be 5-star because I just couldn't get them up fast enough, and I was fine. So if they're a strong enough tune, don't think that you can't use them because they're not 7-star.
Especially with, I say, tanky characters, because generally speaking, what makes a tank very good is they've got a very high amount of health and protection, especially protection, which can be, my for example, my General Kenobi, I've got, I think, 90,000 protection on him, which is an egregious amount of protection. I sacrificed a speed arrow on him, which is coming into mods, which we'll get into in a minute, I'm sure. I don't want to put that can of worms just yet. But if you look at General Kenobi, for example, most of his protection gain is not coming from his stars. It's coming from that gear. And so you can get characters up to at least gear 11 without putting stars on them or getting them quite to 7 stars, and they'll still have some viability. This has changed a bit lately. I'd say the caveat to what you just said is now we've got a gear tier that can't be accessed unless you have a character at 7 stars in gear 12. And a lot of characters are getting a nice protection boost at gear 12, which my General Kenobi is gear 12, so that's why I'm able to get his protection that high. So I think that there are characters that will be viable, especially when you're just getting started out. If you've got less gold gear, that gear 12, those gear 12 shiny rings, if you've got less of that in your arena star, you're a little bit newer in the game, then there'll be more of that. But I think it is getting to a point now where that having those stars is starting to become more important.
So let's talk mods. This is a pretty important, and I remember, when I first was playing through the game and got to this point of mods, and it's a lot of information to take in. And I also remember being confused of mods cost credits to level up, but I also don't have all of my guys at max level. I want to use my credits for that. So where do mods fit into this as far as the priority in line with also leveling up your characters, stars, gear? How important are mods?
Mods are very important.
They're critical.
They can make or break your team. You were talking about upgrading your mods. As you upgrade the mod, it gets extra secondaries. There can be a total of 4 secondaries, and depending on the color of the mod, whether it's green, the order is kind of green, blue, purple, gold. They will sometimes upgrade the secondaries multiple times, making the mod particularly strong. Most players in the beginning will just have a bunch of health mods, and that's okay because what you're really looking to do is make sure that the mod is upgraded all the way to level 15, because then you're getting the maximum set bonus. So for example, if you had a level 12 health mod, 2 level 12 health mods, you would get a partial health bonus from that set. But then once you upgrade the mod to level 15, you'll get the full bonus. And then once you have these mods at level 15, you'll start to gain a collection of them, whether they're 1, 2, 3, 5 dot or star mods, doesn't matter. But you'll start to gain a collection of them, and you'll start to look at the primaries first. That's the most important thing I want to say. Particular characters do better with certain primaries. So for example, we mentioned characters that potentially don't need to be 7-star. One that comes to mind is Mother Talzin. She's very good at what she does. Even at 4 or 5 stars, she can do a lot of significant damage and force teams to have to use counters that they may not either have or are willing to use. A character like Mother Talzin has very low critical chance, and a character like her would actually benefit more from using a primary that focuses on offense, an offensive primary, and she wouldn't really benefit from a critical damage triangle, which a typical kind of attacker would kind of benefit from. So you have to start to look at what your team consists of and start to focus on those primaries first and get the best kind of primaries for each mod slot. And we can kind of run down through, I guess, what those are. The squares are always going to be offensive primaries. The diamonds are always going to be defense. So there's no thinking there. The circles, and this is all on the left side, there's 6 total mods for your characters. The circles are always going to be health or protection. Typically, it doesn't really matter too much which kind of primary you pick for the circle. And for these kind of mods on the left side, what you're really looking for, since there's not too much difference, is you're looking actually for very strong secondaries in those mod slots. And then on the right side, we have the arrow in the top right, and then we have the triangle and the plus or the cross, whatever you guys want to call it. And I think everyone here can agree with me for the arrow. 9 times out of 10, you're looking for a speed arrow in that position.
Yep.
And then if you can't get a 5-dot speed arrow, put a 4-1 or a 3-dot mod, because it's very good in that position. And then for the triangles, you're looking for, attackers, you're looking for something offensive, critical synergies like critical chance, critical damage, or if they have low critical chance like Talzin, maybe offense or something like that. And then the crosses or the pluses are a little bit, up in the air. There's a few there. There's health,
Potency.
and protection and potency.
Tenacity.
And so if you have a character that has an important debuff to land, which is a red square status effect, and you want that to land, you're going to probably want to have a potency primary cross or plus in that position.
So that was, by the way, a very impressive breakdown of mods.
Yeah.
I mean, that was about everything you need to know about primary stats right there summed up. Let's package that and eternalize it, because that was very... when it comes to mods, I'm kind of a simple-minded person. Mods are an area of the game where you could invest a ton of time figuring out how you want to do your mods, and you could rack your brain in all kinds of stats, and that might be tremendously fulfilling to you, and if so, go for it and get your hands dirty in mods. For me, I kind of like something that's a little more simple, a little more quality of life, and so the primary stats that Nukin mentioned are definitely important, but the secondary stats are also going to be very critical when you properly mod a team, and for me, it's as simple as where's the speed?
Yep.
We have a meta of speed in this game. If your team is not fast enough, you could have a lot of really good mods on your team for every other stat but speed and get destroyed because the other team has enough speed. So when you're looking for speed, my best recommendation is you want to have that speed arrow on there, and that's that arrow is the only shape that can have speed primary. Everything else can only have a speed secondary, and you're going to want to look for speed in all of those places. And so when I find a mod, before you upgrade your mod, when it's sitting at level 1, and it has a speed secondary on there, you have a guaranteed upgrade chance for speed secondary. And so I search for those mods. I hunt for those mods. Any mod that has speed secondary, I'll find it, and I'll upgrade it to level 12 first. And this is a credit conservation thing. And you want them to be level 15 eventually, trust me. But what you want to kind of find is a mod that gives you a nice boost in speed on that secondary. And the reason why you want to upgrade it to level 12 is because that's as high as those upgrades are possible. And once you get past level 12, your secondary stats aren't going to upgrade anymore. It will just be the primary stat upgrading. Mm-hmm. And so when you search for those mods, I find mods that upgrade on speed anywhere between 10 and 15. And I don't want to get unrealistic and say 15 to 20. If you get one that goes to 20, then come shake my hand, because that's awesome.
Go buy a lotto ticket.
Go buy a lotto ticket, because that's hard to come by. You do see it. But if you can load your characters up with mods that are between 10 and 15 speed secondary in all of those spots, you can have a very fast team, and that's going to give you a very big leg up. And I actually personally will give the leg to, if I'm deciding between putting a primary stat on or putting speed secondary on, I usually give the benefit of the doubt to speed secondary, because I personally want my team to be as fast as possible first, and then the other stats kind of feel like bonus to me.
So talking about who to mod, where to put mods, whether to spend your credits upgrading the mods, or what to do with that, I think if you are using a character, they should have mods. And that's kind of the point where you stop equipping mods, is if you are not using a character, you don't have to worry about upgrading them. You should, when you get into something like territory battles, every GP matters, and putting a mod on a character increases your GP, so you should have all of your mods equipped. But you can stop upgrading once you're not using the character anymore. But if you're using a character, they should have mods on them. They don't need to be perfect mods, but they should have mods. And I totally agree with everything they said. My arena team, they don't have the mods that show up at the top of my list. They have my fastest mods. Is all on my arena team.
Opponents. So we allow you to choose your opponents. What are some kind of rules of thumb that you guys adhere to when choosing who you want to face? We have kind of the refresh, to where you can tap the button, look for a new group of opponents to fight. How do you guys choose who you do and do not want to spend your time battling?
Well, it depends on, I think, your position. If you're kind of lower, in the 200s and stuff, it's just going to, and lower, it's kind of be a matter of who do you feel confident in beating. But when you get to the top of your arena shards, which should be everybody's goal, in my opinion, even for casual players, you should make that your goal. A lot of you are going to be actually coordinating with your arena shards. And I think this is a really important thing to understand if you want to get into in the top of your arena, is to find the other people who are in your arena at the top and get in touch with those people, because everyone has a different payout time. And what these shards do, if you're not aware of this, is they will coordinate and they will say, all right, there are 5 guys that have their arena payout at this time, meaning whoever is in the number 1 spot at that time for those 5 guys gets the 500 crystals. And those guys will rotate spots. So on Monday I get it, Tuesday he gets it, etc. And so this is a very important part of staying if you want to get to the very top. This is very important because these groups, they'll usually be about 15 to 20, maybe a little bit more, who are coordinating in your arena shard. And if you're not in the group, I hate to say, they're probably going to target you. They're not going to want you to be messing up their payout schedule. So better to be in the group than not in the group. And whether you disagree with that mantra or not, that's just kind of the way it is in this game. So when I select opponents, I know which opponents have a payout coming up. And the guys that I know have an arena payout coming up, I avoid those guys. Just because I don't want to make them have to climb farther. It's kind of a way of making that grind of arena a little bit more manageable. So that's how I personally select them.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Those opponents that you're selecting, that you're not kind of interfering with their payout, as you're climbing, you do kind of have to make a little bit of a decision of which, because you have a group of 5 opponents that you want to attack. And my suggestion is to look at what your arena team is and kind of know its strengths and weaknesses. You can go in and kind of look at other players' characters. So, for example, if you have a list and the teams are the exact same 5 characters, we were talking about mods earlier. Maybe one team has mods that are of less quality. Maybe they have less speed, for example, or they don't have 6 5-dot mods on their team. One of the teams might be easier in that regard.
Yeah.
And then there's other teams, like let's say you decided to run a resistance squad. And resistance squads are very effective against a Sith sort of Darth Nihilus lead. And you start to learn that my team kind of either soft or hard counters another team, but then you take your resistance squad against someone like a rebel team that has Han Solo, who always goes first, and he stuns your Poe, which kind of starts off the whole exposed train, and then suddenly you're very sad. So you you definitely want to look at, so for opponents that are exactly the same, you want to kind of compare the mods. You can also go in and see if they have Zetas. For example, let's say you're facing Commander Luke. Commander Luke has 3 different Zetas, but you might see that one team has a Commander Luke lead that has 3 Zetas, and another one has only 1. So, go to the one team that has 1 Zeta and less quality mods, and you'll have a more efficient time climbing. So that's kind of my suggestion there too.
There's also counters to different teams that you'll find. I think right now probably the most obvious example, and this could change very quickly by the time you guys see this movie, but for right now, you've kind of got these rebel teams, and rebel teams are very critical hit heavy. They're going to crit for a lot of damage under Commander Luke lead. And then you've got these General Kenobi Barriss teams, which punish the heck out of you for laying critical hits, because Barriss will heal her team anytime they suffer a critical hit. And so for me personally, this is one reason why I hate Barriss, because I'm running Rebels in Arena, and so I think it's really annoying to go against them. I think it's super annoying. But you might find maybe you can attack those teams by shaking up your Arena team a bit. And the best example of that for me, in my Arena right now, I run Commander Luke, Thrawn, General Kenobi, R2-D2, and Raid Han. And for me, beating Barris is as simple as I'm going to have to sub out my Raid Han and put in my Nihilus, which takes out some of those critical hits and gives me an opportunity to just annihilate Zeta Barris. And then once you annihilate her,
Feels so good.
it does feel good to annihilate Barris because I hate her. Once you get her out of there, her unique Zeta ability is no longer active in the match, and you can just plow through everyone. So yeah, it is good to be cognizant of what are your strengths and weaknesses. Like Nukin said, I think for Rebels, strength is critical hits, but that strength immediately becomes a weakness against a Zeta Barris team, especially when General Kenobi is the lead because he gives a health boost as well.
Mm-hmm. And then this pertains to all players actually. Whether you're a newer player or a more advanced player, utilizing the mods that you have, you don't need to have 20 speed secondary mods. But what you do kind of want to do
But I would take them.
I would take them any day of the week too. But what you do want to do is sometimes you want to tweak the turn order, at least at the very beginning, of how your 5 characters go.
Oh, right.
So, for example, we were talking about some rebel scumbags with Commander Luke, and there's Han Solo and R2-D2 in there. Typically, you want R2-D2 to go first. And if you're struggling in Arena, that's one of the first things that I recommend. I would say I would take this mod and this mod and this mod from maybe Commander Luke because it has more speed, and I would transfer it to R2-D2 and send his mods over to whoever needs them as well. So sometimes the turn order is important. You can still win a battle not going first, but eventually you're going to go, and you want that turn order to kind of be to your liking.
If you're having a hard time winning, pay attention to the first 10 seconds of your match. Those can be the most important seconds of a match. Just like Nukin said, it could be the difference of if my R2-D2 is not able to go first and then their Han is taking out my Han within a few seconds, then I need to get R2-D2 to go first so that I can protect him. So I would pay attention to that turn order if you're having a hard time winning battles. It makes a big difference.
The other thing on when you're picking who you're fighting is to check speed on the other team. And sometimes you only need to check it for one character. So a while ago, Stormtrooper Han was the big thing. And the reason for that is when he taunts, he gives everyone else on the team turn meter. So that was very nice because all you had to do was make him really fast. So he goes first, and you didn't have to have the crazy speed mods on everyone else. He would boost them up. I do the same thing with my Rex. His ability gives everyone turn meter. People would do that with their Sith Assassin. She would speed up their Zeta Maul team. So a lot of times you only need to check that one person and see if your faster tune can go before theirs. So
it's the same with resistance too, right? With Poe,
you need your Poe.
If you can get your Poe to go first, you can get that exposed train running, and then the speed of the rest of your team is kind of irrelevant almost.
Yeah, there's a lot. Jawa Engineer is another one, although they're not super strong right now. And then what's in it? Thrawn. Thrawn's pretty fast.
Very fast.
And he can swap his turn meter with a very slower character actually. So you can suddenly have maybe a like Emperor Palpatine, he's quite good, but he doesn't go very fast, but Thrawn does, and suddenly you have Emperor Palpatine going first, which kind of completely changes how the whole battle would have gone if you didn't do that.
Or the Wampa.
Wampa smash.
Yeah, who can, which is really nice because he can daze, and something that makes Rebels so good right now is they counter, and if you daze, then you can no longer counter. But then, of course, you've got that General Kenobi cleanse, which tends to come, so manage him as well.
So it's constantly changing, right? Sounds like, month over month, it's like, oh yeah, there's a flavor of the month, and it's, oh yeah, it's kind of meanderings, but it sounds like you can kind of adapt by looking at the details of the characters that they're using, and then you're really understanding what it is that you're going to be facing.
And certain really strong tunes, you can kind of phase in and out. Nihilus is just a great character.
Very much
so.
So
Even if you're not using him in your arena team, if you run into a roadblock team, you can just pull him in for a quick second. So the really strong tunes that's kind of in the meta right now, Luke, R2-D2, Nihilus, Rex, Kenobi, those are the really strong tunes. You can throw them in any team to kind of help you over a little roadblock. You'll use them all the time.
Yes.
Even if they're not in your default everyday team. They helped you adapt.
So what are the prizes? Why does Squad Arena rank matter?
I actually did. I did a video about being a free-to-play player, and I talked about the importance of Arena to a free-to-play player, and it's important to everyone. But for those of us who are free-to-play, it's especially important because this is our money in the game. And I don't remember exactly what my math was on it, but if you can finish in the top of your Arena server every day, if you can get to the top, if you can get to that achievement, good for you. You're getting 500 crystals a day for first place, 450 for second place. That equates to, over the course of, I think it's a month, I forgot exactly what the time frame was, but actual tangible money of about $80 worth of crystals in game for a month. So it's actual tangible money that you're making in game. You're paying yourself by doing that. You're becoming a pay-to-play player, basically, without spending money in the game if you finish in the top of your shard. So it's very much worth getting there.
Think of it this way. 3 days at rank 1 is a Carbanti.
That does it for me.
A Carbanti has 1,400 crystals.
Yeah.
And that Carbanti is like the highest coveted piece of gear. Kenobi needs 9. We need them constantly. And you get 500 crystals at being rank 1. If you're rank 1 for 3 days, you can buy a Carbanti in the store.
Yeah, and then what you do is you take those crystals and, we were talking about how the meta of the Arena constantly changes. Well, if you can kind of figure out a way to consistently rank high, and get that $80 worth of crystals in 1 month and do that for a few months, suddenly you're doing better than the majority of the rest of your shard or server of players that you're with, and you're more prepared to change your Arena team because you have more crystals to work with, and you can change as the meta changes with it, and kind of keep up with that. And then another good thing about the doing well in Arena, it's not a lot, but you get a significant amount of more of the currency for the Arena store. And there's some good characters in there. There's credits, there's prestige. Depending on where you're at the game, they're all kind of, I've done a mixed match of all 3 of those. But yeah, credits are a thing. And you can spend about 2,000 currency to get, I think, 1 million credits. And that's big. Just like you don't need to get everything in the store. There's a few particular characters that I wouldn't necessarily recommend unless you're a collector. Go for it. But then that kind of currency that you didn't spend on some of those characters, or if you're just desperate and I need some credits to upgrade this mod. Spend 2,000 currency and buy some credits there. And you can do that more often because you get a higher amount of that currency as you rank up in Arena.
Well, to make sure that you guys stay up on the latest meta with Squad Arena, like and subscribe to all their channels. They've all got great stuff, and they will make sure that the latest and greatest characters and the shifts in Squad Arena will be made known to you. So, guys, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, and good luck in Squad Arena, guys.